investors.
I am here with the Property Challenge podcast.
I teach investors all around the world how to become real estate investors and
how to overcome their challenges. Join me here every single week. PCP, the Property Challenge podcast.
When I started this podcast and when I said, what am I going to talk about? I said the best name is
the Property Challenge.
Hey investors, welcome back to another episode of the Property Challenge podcast with your girl, Terrica Lynn Smith. And what better way than to open this up talking about project management? When I was thinking about, like the steps, the processes and everything that goes into this, I realized that whenever you're building your team, you're going to be as strong as your weakest link. So if you are like saying, I want to be a real estate investor and, I want to be able to have this real estate portfolio, you're probably going to want to start at project management. The reason why I say that is because if you have a really bad project manager, your project can cost you thousands of dollars. It can cause you to lose money, but most importantly, it can cause you to lose time. So whenever we're breaking down what this all-star team look like for a project manager, don't get it twisted with property manager. Those are two different things. Often I hear people say they need a property manager, but they actually need a project manager. So what's the difference between the two? So we can just break that down real quick. Well, first, a property manager is typically someone who's managing a property where tenants are going to be living in. It's like an apartment complex. Your property manager is going to look at your vacancies, your occupancy rate. They're going to do rents. They're going to do the budget. They're going to have maintenance staff. It's a whole process for property management, right? They're going to manage the property to be able to produce income. The project manager is different because it's on the construction side. So typically when you hire a project manager, it's going to be for like your fix and flips. It's going to be for new construction, developments. Some people, they just hire a project manager to be able to oversee the entire process, even if they have a general contractor. So general contractors can be project managers, but typically speaking, a general contractor is going to hire a project manager to manage all of the operations of that project. So when you're building this all-star team, one of the first things I wrote down is this: you will only be as strong as your weakest link. So if you hire bad, you bring in the wrong property manager and project manager, and they start costing you all kind of money in the beginning, you're going to lose money throughout that entire project, and it's going to be very hard to recoup that. So whenever you're looking for an ideal project manager, the first thing you want to look at is their execution. Execution cannot be it's not fake. It's either you're going to execute or your results are going to show that you're not executing. A good project manager understands that the project has to be done in a timely manner and that excuses cannot slow the project down. So a good project manager is not going to give you excuses on why people did not show up to work. They are an executor. They're going to find somebody else. It's the next man up in this business. So while one lazy project manager may be waiting on this one sub to come back, you got this one sub holding up an entire job. Let's say you're waiting on the plumber to come back, which is a sub, right? And the plumber has not been back in 4 weeks. What do this project manager do? A good one is going to replace him by the first week. I'm not waiting 4 weeks to see what this dude going to do, right? A lazy project manager, a bad project manager, they're going to be coming to you at week 4 with their head between their legs saying, I don't know why he not showing up. I've been calling, I've been texting, all that whine and stuff. I call those people, I call them marshmallow men, right? Like I have a zero tolerance for a marshmallow man in real estate. I can't do it. I'm not the right person for it. You got to pick somebody else because it is not my gift. I do not like a marshmallow man. When you're going to be a project manager and you putting yourself in that role, you got to roll your sleeves up and you got to be willing to do the work. And excuses is not one that you can give to an owner who's putting out hundreds of thousands of dollars in an investment property. I don't want to hear your reasons on why someone did not show up. So if you're working with a project manager and they're already bringing you excuses without solutions, you're hiring wrong already. Because a great project manager is not going to come to you with the problem. They're going to come with what they already done. They're going to say, hey, this came up, didn't want to bother you with it, but we took care of it like this. Another good thing about a good project manager is they're going to watch the budget. They're paying attention to where your money is going. A lot of times, whenever you're hiring these project managers, they want you to pay them 50% up front, or a few dollars up front. I have a zero pay rule. That zero pay rule means I am not paying you $1 before you pick up a hammer. There's no way I'm doing that. I'm not paying you $1 before you start the job you're supposed to be doing. I don't know where in America you can go and ask somebody to give you money for work you have not done yet. It is the exact same way in real estate. So a lot of times you hear people getting taken advantage of because they didn't pay the general contractor or a project manager 50% of their budget because they said we need 50% down, and they just left with it. Let me draw this out for you guys. Imagine a home being 100% complete, meaning you can move all of your furniture in there, right? That is 100% complete. The power is on, your furniture is in, you're able to go to bed. It's 100% completed. Imagine 0% is you have you have your blueprints, and you have your imagination, and you have your team that you're building, but you haven't started anything yet. So that's what 0% look like. So imagine 50% being you poured the foundation, you framed up the house, you got the black in on, you got the roof in, and you got the exterior pretty much done, and now you're about to go inside the house and start focusing on the interior finishes. That would be 50%. So essentially, if you're giving a contractor 50% before they start, you're saying you're halfway done with the project. You're saying you're able to walk into this project and look around and be able to see the layout of where everything's going to be, where the living room at, where the kitchen at, where the bathroom's at, how big are the closets. That's what that means when you give them 50%. A good project manager, and an honest one, right? So not just good, because you can have good project managers that are liars. That's the truth, right? But they good at executing. They good at getting it done. But they can be a liar in the sense of saying something may charge X amount and they mark it up, and then they take that cost and make profit off of you. A project manager should only be making its project management fee unless you're doing a cost plus deal with this project manager, and then they can mark it up. So be careful whenever you allowing the project manager to go buy all this stuff and they're marking it up on you. And on top of that, you paying them a fee. It's like you double paying them. So whenever I'm dealing with a project manager, one of the first things I do is create a draw schedule. You will not play me. So if 50% is me walking inside and checking out with a kitchen at, the living room at, and everything like that, I'm not cutting a check before I get to 50%. You have not done anything in this property to get $1. So why would I give you any money right now? So you want to make sure you're focusing on their execution and how they're performing for you guys. You want to make sure that, the draw schedule matches up with what they're asking for. You want to make sure that your budget, right, that they're staying within budget, because guess what? Their costs may not change, but if they go over budget, you still lose money. So a good project manager is going to be managing that budget the entire way through. I'll give you guys an example, right? I'm going to be honest. I did a bad hire. Okay. I did a bad hire. I have a project. I hired someone to be a project manager. And the truth is, I probably discerned in the beginning that this probably wasn't the best candidate for the job. But at the time being, I made the decision based on the circumstances of what I was in, right? So I was in the middle of a lot of different other properties that were getting done. And yet I need a project manager because I'm still traveling. I'm still doing all this other stuff. I'm educating you guys, right? So I still need that project manager to oversee things while I'm gone. Well, I should have known the first day that we get ready to do the framing for the foundation and everything, right? The driveways were on the both sides, right? So opposite sides. So what happens is when you're building homes in a subdivision, if you pay attention, the reason why we do a mirror image is because of the simple fact there's typically an electrical line that has to be ran, and it cuts the cost in half if I have to run it on the opposite side. So when I noticed that the driveways were on opposite sides versus being connected, like almost connected to each other in a sense, right? a few hundred feet away, I knew we had a problem. So I remember calling up my business partner. I said, hey, this is probably not something, but it may be something really big. How are you a general contractor and licensed, and you can't even tell that the framers then framed the driveways the wrong way? That was like the first sign. But guys, we get dismissive, we get busy, we get in the middle of things, and we believe that these things are supposed to, we would like to believe that they're going to work themselves out. But they typically don't. You're just kicking a can up the road. That's all you're doing is constantly kicking a can. So I go on, I called the project manager. I said, hey, they have framed up the driveways the wrong way. I need for you to get them changed. Man. So I'm like, okay, meet me at the site. Let me show you what I'm talking about, right? Guys, this has been months of a headache of dragging and pulling teeth, right? It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else doing something. It's always something. But you know what the truth is? This is my fault, because I could have totally avoided this if I would have been a little bit more patient and probably went with option 2 that I had. But I didn't. I went with option 1 because option 1 was more polished. Option 2 was like, kind of gutter. So I was like, probably not option 2, whatever. So again, that's me not being patient and making a wrong decision. So I made a bad hire, right? And we're human. I'm not perfect. And I think that the purpose of the podcast is to tell you that there are going to be challenges in properties that you have. But as long as you can overcome those challenges, anything is figure outable. I always say that word, figure outable. Like, I'm going to figure this out. Right? If I made a bad hire, I'm going to figure out how to make it right. If I promise my investors a return on an investment, I'm going to figure out how to get it done. Even if I don't get paid $0, that's how important it is to me. A good project manager, if they go over budget, they will take a back seat till they pay, because they know that they are responsible for that budget. So again, you want to make sure when you're looking at project managers and you're going to hire them that that they're executing, they're going to remain on budget. They're not asking you for money up front. But look, they got to take ownership. Like, one of the things I cannot stand with a project manager is when they want to blame everybody else but themselves. I didn't hire all of these subs. I hired you. You hired all of the subs. So if I hired you and you hired all of the subs, I think you need to be having a conversation with the subs and not coming back to me. So now I got to fight your battles. I mentioned earlier that I don't like marshmallow men, right? So marshmallow men, I call those men the pushovers, right? Like, they're too nice to be in the industry. You got to have like this grit in order to deal with these contractors. You can't be a pushover, right? And when I say a pushover, it's not like literally somebody pushing you. It means they tell you a bunch of bull crap and you buy it. Oh, well, we can't come out today because it's raining. Okay, that might sound reasonable, right? But then 3 days go by and they say, well, you remember I told you it was raining? You was like, yeah, it was raining. In your mind, you thinking, oh, the ground got to dry for them to finish framing up the house. No, you're a nice guy, right? It's like, hey, it wasn't raining 3 days straight. So if it's not raining, you can be working. So you want to make sure that you're not being that pushover. And if you are that person, like if you hate having hard conversations, don't be a project manager. Because when you're a project manager, you have to have those challenging conversations. They're not confrontational. They will cost you so much money if you do not have them in the beginning. Ask me how I know, because I am one who has paid a lot of money, and not because I'm a marshmallow, but because I made a bad hire decision, right? But I quickly knew that this decision needed to be fixed, and I literally started putting processes and things in place. I'm not taking nobody's word on who's good and who's great no more. I'm trusting my discernment. Last time I dismissed my discernment. I thought that person was going to be something different, and they wasn't. So with that being said, I'm more careful now moving forward, because I'd rather do 5 houses in 1 year versus 12 raggedy homes in 1 year, and then be called back 12 times and have all type of issues because we got, all of these different subs that's not doing the work the right way, or whatever the case may be, right? I'm just making it up. But again, that's what a good project manager is going to do. They're going to protect you from them phone calls. They're going to protect you against your job being slowed down. They're going to protect you against the excuses, the lies, and all these other things that these subs be trying to do. Guys, I call this business babysitting grown men. Literally, I have to babysit grown men on a daily basis. Hey, are you at this project? Hey, did you go pick up this material? As a good project manager, I got to make sure I call that material in and make sure that the store have everything ready so my guys are not missing time on work. Because if you are and I always recommend this, you deal with your own material. Don't put that in your budget with your contractor. Go buy your own material. So if I got to be responsible for making sure they have the material at the job site, then guess what? I got to make sure it's there. I got to make sure that the store have everything ready and that everything is supposed to be delivered when it's supposed to be delivered. The next thing I wrote down is this: a great project manager is going to be the pilot. So, on the airplane, you got the flight attendants. They like to make you feel warm and welcome. They want to show you the safety procedures. They want to give you nuts, They want to, give you high fives. They're really sweet, right? They're really sweet and cute. But you got the pilot. They getting on the plane. They're going to say, hey, this is your pilot. We're at such and such, altitude, whatever. And they're going to give you the destination of where they're going. That's a project manager, right? We're not here to, fluff up everybody and make everybody smile. We got one job and one job only. It's to get this plane lifted up and to get this plane lifted down safely with everybody in contact. That's a good project manager. It's to get this project started and to get this project completed. I'm not here to be the flight attendant. I'm not here to give these guys, candies and nuts and chips and all of this. I'm here to get the job done. So as a project manager, it is not my role. It is not my responsibility to be the one that's constantly having to be like, watching feelings, if you would, right? I don't have that bone in my body. Some of you may have that bone in your body. I don't. I feel like if you get a paycheck, you got a job to do, right? I don't get a break from not having to pay your mortgage. So if I can't get a break, you can't get a break. That's just the way it goes, right? And I always explain that to the guys. I say, hey, is it okay if I don't pay you next Friday? Well, gosh, no. Why would you ask me that? Well, that's what you're asking me when you ask me to extend my job, when you're taking long on my job, whenever you're not doing what you're supposed to do on my job. That's what you're asking me to do. So it's okay for you to ask me to do that with your actions, but it's not okay for me to ask you that with my mouth. Something wrong with that. So again, you got to be willing to have those challenging conversations and know that they're not confrontational, right? That project manager is going to be a team player. Now, I'm not biting everybody's heads off. The people who typically think I am biting their heads off or they would say, oh, you're very challenging to work with. It's the people who don't execute at a high level. I'm a very high executor. Everybody that's around me, that's in proximity to me, that has a link with me. I'm not talking about the sublinks. I'm talking about a link directly connected to me. You have to be an executor. You have to be a doer. You cannot be a person who got to be picked up, shuffled, and carried around like you're a 9-month-old baby. We don't do that here, right? So whenever you're hiring me because I have a particular set of skills that I am extremely good at. I'm going to make you money in the process. But all I ask in this process is that you do your job. That's it. Everybody that do their job, they love me. They be like, yo, T's so easy to work with. I called my CFO last night. Me and her was on the phone cutting up or whatever. She had to talk me off a cliff real quick. And so, we're just cutting up or whatever. And, she just, she said, man, I absolutely love my job. I love what I do. I love the people that I'm with. And what that tells you is that when you're in a good environment like that, it works. The thing is, I never have to call my CFO and ask her what she's doing. I never have to go in her office and say, why you didn't do this. Not once in the history of her working here have I ever had to go in her office and say, why is this not done? Not once. Those are the kind of people I love. The kind that I don't have to go and ask why something is not done. Because if I got to ask you why something already done, then it's already too late. You know, yesterday I posted a quote on my page. It said, if you're playing catch up on Monday, you're already behind. That's the way I look at everything. If I got to play catch up, I'm already behind. So I don't like to be behind. You know, you ever heard that saying, like, if you lead in a pack, then your back got to be to them. So that means my back is going to always be to those who are not going to be high executors. And the ones that's leading the pack are all on the front line with me. They're all ready for war. They all ready to get the job done. They all understand the assignment. They all understand that they got to be killers in this season, meaning that there's no excuses. There's none at all, right? So then I said, another good thing about a project manager, right, is that they're going to be a deal finder, right? When you have a good project manager and you're a real estate investor and you don't like to find deals, a good project manager will bring you a deal already set up on your plate. My property manager, not project manager, my property manager messaged me yesterday. She said, hey, T, I just found out about a deal in Alabama. I know you already got investments there, so this looked like another great opportunity. It's another HUD site. I'll get you more details whenever I can. That's my property manager getting that. But you know what? She's climbing for asset manager position, so that's why she's constantly on the prowl. She's constantly, like, she's doing the things that she needs to do to be able to get to that next level of promotion, right? My property manager, she's a straight killer. You know what I'm saying? She's on it. She's managing the site. She's managing the people. But what I see in her is something greater. So I want to move her up into the development side of things because I believe that she would be able to scale my portfolio even greater. A good project manager has a vision and they have a dream. I can see in people what they can't necessarily see in themselves. So I'm going to build that out within them. There's not a person on my team who I don't want to invest. There's not a person on my team who I don't want to see do better than me. There's not a person on my team who can say that they sit at this table and starve because everybody around here eat. That's when you know that you have a good project manager. When they got a solid team and they keep showing up and the team not changing. The only people that may change is the lazy ones that you got to get rid of, and you got to get rid of them because they'll cost you money, like I said. But project managers, guess what? We bring the peace. That's right. The peace. I don't know about y'all, but I enjoy peace. Okay. Like, I feel like I can get so much more done if I'm working and operating in peace. So when I'm acting as a project manager and the subs start acting up, I'm already canceling them because they're causing chaos to my life. The example I gave about the plumber, that was a real situation. That plumber set us back 2 months. 2 months. So you know what that means? My project is set back 2 months, but it's not on the plumber. It's not the plumber's fault. Whose fault is it? Put in the chat right now. Whose fault is it? It's the project manager, because the project manager should have already enforced the contract that he had signed with not showing up and abandoning the property. But because this project manager, he don't like having those challenging conversations, it start costing me money in the end. So then I have to have the conversation with the project manager to say, hey, you're not doing the job I hired you to do. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to fix it? The worst thing you can do when I come to you and tell you that you're not doing your job is to blame somebody else. That is the worst thing you can do. Own it. Be like, yo, T, I dropped the ball. I'm going to pick it back up. I got you. Don't worry about it. I'll give you a report by Wednesday or Thursday on what we're doing to make this more efficient. On Wednesday or Thursday, you're going to have a full report of what I've done to implement the changes so this wouldn't happen again. That's a good project manager. That's how you get things done. A good project manager is going to be able to own up to everything. And then not only own up to everything, because leaders, you step up, right? As a leader, you step up, and you never really want to it's never attractive to throw people under the bus like that to me. Like I can't unsee that. When you throw somebody else up under the bus for like you couldn't reach them, you couldn't get in contact with them, that's the worst thing you can do with me. So as an investor, I'm very strict with this process. Now, you don't get to 1,000 properties just by, making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. You have to learn along the way. And look, I'm a seasoned real estate investor and I still made a bad hire. But what did I learn from this? Because I don't look at it necessarily as a loss. I look at it as a lesson learned. What did I learn from this? Trust the red flag the first time. When he had those driveways on the wrong side of each other, I knew then he should have been fired. But guess what? I'm too far in right now. I'm too deep right now. So because I'm too deep in this right now, I cannot cut the cord right now. But what I can do is strategically plan for a transition for this particular project manager to be on his way out the door and another project manager to be on his way coming in through the door. Do me a favor. Don't build your team with a lot of people that's familiar with a lot of people. I'll say that again. Don't allow your project manager to build their team with a lot of familiar people, okay? The reason why is because if that project manager get pissed off and upset at you, everybody that's attached to that project manager is gone. Everybody. So you got to ask yourself the question, if this project manager quits on me in the middle of the job, where does this put me at? What do I have to come in and pick up? And am I capable of being able to pick up where this project manager left off? For those do-it-yourselfers out there, if you've never done a real estate fix and flip, if you've never done a community development, if you've never done new construction, if you've never done these things, I would not recommend being your first project manager just so you can save that money. The best money you can spend is on the education that you'll get on the field. That makes sense? All of the education that you're going to get on the field from being around a project manager is way more valuable than you trying to figure it out on your own. If you've never did a fix and flip or new construction or development, don't be a project manager off bat because it's the blind leading the blind. You don't know which direction you should be heading in. You're allowing things to take place before other things to take place because you don't have that experience. And some say, well, how do I get that experience with being a project manager? You hire one and you work around that project manager or that general contractor. That general contractor can very well be a project manager, but they typically hire project managers because they usually manage in multiple construction sites and jobs. So again, if you're like, I want to do this, you can do it, but you're probably going to get a haircut. I have somebody in the inner circle, in my inner circle program, shout out to our inner circle, right? They messaged me, they said, Coach, I do not think I am cut out to be a project manager. They said they knew they were perfect for it. So I said, well, why not, right? And they said, it is so hard to get people to show up for work. And when they don't show up, I get discouraged. And then I feel like nothing is done right. Guys, that's project management. If you can't get them to show up, you're not the right person for it. It's okay for you to step aside. It's okay for you to move yourself to the side. I put on here also a good project manager. They are a powerhouse with communication. They know how to communicate from the top all the way down to the bottom. They're not going to let you go solo. Or is it solo? No, YOLO. YOLO. You only live once. They're not going to do that to you. They're going to take care of you. They're going to protect you. They're going to make sure you're good, right? They're going to make sure that all of the communication is being done. They're going to let you know that everything is going along on time. I just finished doing a project management deal for a property, right? And it was a particular client. They had been in this home for over 30 years. I believe it's like 30 years. So, of course, the house needed a tremendous takeoff. A takeoff is what we put together like a scope of work to be able to see everything that needs to be done. So as I'm looking at this takeoff schedule and I'm looking at the budget that I create, I'm saying, man, this is going to be tight. But only someone with experience is going to be able to make this budget work. And guess what? I'm the one with experience. This is the budget they had, and this has to work or it has to work, right? And so the very first thing I did was I established this precedence of the whole entire job site. This is phase 1. This is phase 2. This is phase 3. This is phase 4. What is phase 1? Phase 1 is we're going to come in. We're going to start the demolition. We're going to look at the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC. We're going to look at the layout of the floor plan. We're going to see if this is a good functional floor plan for a home buyer to be able to come and say, I would love to live in this property. Well, when we did that, the first thing we realized was, they got this huge wall up. This wall got the kitchen looking very tiny, and it got the living room looking very closed in. So the first thing I did, because I'm a visionary, but I'm also a really great project manager, is I said, we're going to knock this wall down. Someone with no experience said, you can't knock this wall down, because if you knock this wall down, the whole house is going to come tumbling down. It's wall bearing. I said, hey, do you understand that we can frame this entire area up in the form of what would look like an open floor plan, right? Open casing. And we put this 8x8 beam up to be able to support the wall that we took down. They said, oh, wow, I didn't know you can do that. I said, right. So what I need for you to do for the rest of the job is let me do my job. Let me do my job, right? I've been doing this for 20 years. If I signed up to be your project manager, one thing for sure, and two things I know, is that this job is going to get done. One, I don't play about my time. I don't have pointless conversations. I don't got time for chit chat. We got a job to do. So we got to get it done. Now, there's a time for chit chat whenever, the job has been done and we're relaxed and we're cutting up. But up until that point, we all have a job to do. So for me, I'm not about to sit here and procrastinate knowing that we got to get this job done. So I say that to say, the second phase after the demolition and everything and building out a functional floor plan and checking out the main components is now I got to come up with the scope of work of the whole entire interior and exterior, right? So come up with all the scope of work. We got everything laid out. Guess what? It's a flawless scope of work. The contractors, all my subs, I send it out to them. They understand it. They say, okay, we can do it. We can make it work within this budget, Miss Terrica. I'm ready to rock and roll with that. I'm like, all right, perfect. That was first set. Well, that's second phase too, right? Phase 1 and phase 2 kind of go together. Phase 3 is my absolute favorite. Now I'm choosing all the fun stuff. That's the paint colors. I'm choosing, all the interior finishes. I'm doing, the bathroom finishes. I'm doing the ceramics. I'm doing the floor. It's all cute stuff that everybody loves to do whenever you watch HGTV. Everybody want to decorate the property. Everybody want to take a look at that property. Everybody, it's just fun, right? Then you got phase 4. When you at phase 4, you're looking back at the past 3 phases. Phase 1, demolition. Phase 2, exterior, interior design, laying out, making sure everything is functional. Phase 3 is all the cute stuff. Phase 4 is your final stages where you're putting a bow on top of everything and making sure everything is good because you're ready to go to market. And that's what we did. I finished this project. I told them it'd take me about 8 to 12 weeks to get done. I finished it in 6 weeks. Shout out to me because that was a huge time difference as a project manager. I sent them over the paint colors. I sent them over the flooring. I sent them over the whole entire design. I sent all of that in phase 1. So they knew everything that they were getting. After I told them to let me do my job, I never heard from them again. They show back up. Guess what? The house is done. Everything looks good. They were checking in, obviously, because it's their property. But then guess what? Now it's time to go to market. I got to prove this point because I told them I'm not only a project manager, I'm a real estate broker, right? So I'm licensed to sell real estate. So I ran the comps. I said, hey, this is what I think this property is going to be worth. I said, look, it's going to be somewhere around $225 to $250. But I would like to start off on the higher end of $275 because they had one comp y'all, listen to me, one comp in the area that made it say I can sell at this price. So I started the property off a little bit higher. 275 was on the market for 24 hours. We received the offer within the first 24, 48 hours. We're under contract, and the goal is to be able to close this week. They are singing my praises all over the world right now, right? Why? Because I did a really great job being their project manager. I communicated very efficiently with them. They loved the process. They watched me work. And I completely transformed their home to what they've been used to for the past 30 years, to a home that's now modern and up to date. As soon as the buyers walked in, they said, "Oh my goodness, this is home," right? So we're hoping we close on that deal on Friday. We're waiting on our final loan commitment, but that's what a good project manager do. They get you started from the beginning and they take you all the way to the end. I also put on here, right, that a great project manager is going to be a great negotiator. So whenever I went to market with this property, right, I had to negotiate with the agent because they're trying to come in lower. I had to negotiate with the agent, but I made it where it was a win for her buyer and a win for my seller. I also had to negotiate with all the subs to make sure that I can get the job done within a certain time period that made sense, but also would be within the budget that I had. So I had to negotiate with the subs. You see, as a project manager, you're going to always be in the middle of negotiations, but you got to make sure that you're negotiating to stay on budget. If you are paying attention to your budget, and some of you may say, well, how do you monitor that? Well, if you join Protege, just click the link below. I'm sure we got it in the bio, right? We have formulas and calculators and things like that that you can use to be able to analyze deals. But we also have where you can break all your deals up in phases. We have the draw schedule. We have all of those things that are available to our Protege members, where you get monthly access to continued real estate education and real estate learning, growth, knowledge, etc., right? So being that negotiator is very important, because if you don't negotiate correctly, you can end up putting yourself in a bad situation. And then one of the last things that I wrote down with this is, in order to be a rock star investor, you have to be willing to cut loose those loose ends, those weakest links. I can't stress that enough, guys. I get that you may build a relationship with people. I get that, it may be hard to have those conversations. But in the end, it's going to be your legacy, or it's going to be their legacy. So going into project management, don't just go head first. Don't just dive. I always recommend hire someone. Don't do it yourself for the first time, because it's not going to be right. I don't know what to say. It's not going to be right. But if you go in with the mindset of, I always want to be a student, I always want to learn this. Even after 20 years of being in this business, I am still a student. I constantly learn new things each and every day in real estate, and I am not ashamed to say that I am a student. I may be a leader in this area, but I may be a student in this area. I'll give you guys a great example, right? I am a really great leader when it comes to, when it comes to budgeting and project management. I'm a great leader, right? Where I'm a great student at is on the financial aspect part of it. That means that I'm going to continuously learn what my cash on cash is going to be. And again, if you're in Protege, we teach about those type of things, right? What my ROI is going to be, my return on investment. I'm going to constantly be a student at learning all of these things and talking to people that's doing it at a very high scale. There's some companies, like I think of Cardone Capital, for instance, right? Cardone Capital, I remember when Cardone Capital was first started, and Grant, he was not a billionaire at this time. But over time, he has managed so many different projects that the more projects he managed, the more relationships he was entrusted with. And the more relationships he was entrusted with, the more opportunities he got. And the more opportunities he got, the more chances he had to reach his goal of becoming a billionaire. So now with him having $1 billion in real estate assets under management, dude, do you know how powerful that is? To say I got $1 billion in real estate up under management, that is huge, right? But again, he couldn't allow other people excuses become his reasons for not being successful. He couldn't do that. He had to have those challenging conversations. He had to watch the budget. He had to prove himself, proof of concept. He was the concept. He had to prove that Cardone Capital was going to be the doggone best capital company there is for real estate investing. And that's what he built. He built one of the largest real estate conferences around the world. Proof of concept, right? So sometimes you got to get in there and get that social proof, get that proof of concept, prove who you are so people can say, yo, I want to do business with someone like that. The reason why people are always saying, yo, T, I want to work with you is because they see how hard I execute. They see how hard I go in. So again, project management, it comes to me second nature. I'm a really great project manager. Why? Because I don't mind doing the things that are required to get the job done. I understand how expensive time is. I understand how expensive time is. So because I understand how expensive time is, I'm going to make sure that I spend the least amount of time and get the greatest return on that time invested into that project. Probably 2 years ago now, I turned down a deal. I turned down an investment deal. I had a king and queen in Africa. They offered me hundreds of acres of land to come and build on, right? Now, I don't like to say places are third world countries. I definitely don't like to call Africa a third world country. But what I will say is that there's a lot of resources that were needed to be able to build. They wanted to do what's called a micro community. And in order to build a micro community from scratch, right, you got to look at the infrastructure of what you have. And the problem with their infrastructure was that, they had no way to get power and or water. Those are two major components for infrastructure, right? And the third thing that detoured me was the gangs. They like, hey, just so you know, in Africa, I can give you all of this land. But if a gang come and take over this land, you are responsible for removing them. Now, I'm a project manager, guys. I know my strengths. I am not about to go up against a gang in Africa over some land. It ain't my strength. Your girl ain't that sweet. That's probably where I'm a marshmallow at, going up against the gangs. So I said, what do you mean gangs, right? I said, can we just call the police? And the king said, nah, they own the police. I said, but you the king. So you mean to tell me you the king and you can't get them off the property and you got all this security around us and you expect for me to go out there and get them off the property if they come and squat and take it over? The moment they see us placing resources, millions and millions of dollars of resources there? He said, yeah, but we can help with security. But how do I know that security not bought? I'm going into unfamiliar territories, right? So sometimes as a project manager, you got to say no to opportunities that look like opportunities, but really not opportunities, because there's no reason why I would be interested in getting a headshot from a gang that I know nothing about. And on top of that, they know the woods in Africa way better than your girl. They coming out with them little, them little shoot guns where they, drive by and shoot you with them little sticks, hit you in the neck, you pass out. I just was not interested in none of that type of stuff. So I politely told the king, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be thought of in this position. And I know many would kill at an opportunity to just even say the words. They own hundreds of acres of land in Africa. But when I thought about the movie Blood Diamond and they asked him short sleeve or long sleeve, the short sleeve mean that they cut off your hand. The long sleeve mean they cut off your arm. I can't unsee that movie. So all I thought about was them taking me hostage and asking me short sleeve or long sleeve. I want my whole sleeve. I am not interested in negotiating any type of sleeves. So I tell you guys, look, it's okay to say no to projects as project managers, but as investors, it's okay to say no to project managers that you don't feel comfortable with, that you don't feel like they can actually do the job. Don't overstay with a project. Well, don't overcommit to a project that you know you cannot get to the finish line. It's not worth it because your character is who you are. If you already know that you can't get this to the finish line, but your reputation is way louder than your character. Everybody is saying how great you are. Terrica did this and Terrica did that and Terrica is so phenomenal. And the reason why they can say all those things is because Terrica know who her character is. And if my character say, hey, I cannot do that. Hey, I'm not in a position to do this. Hey, I'm not qualified to do this. I'm okay with telling them no. So I want to end this podcast with this question. Ask yourself, are you the right person for this property challenge? Because it's going to be a challenge doing this property. Are you the right person? Are you the key person to manage this project? Or do you need to hire a project manager? If you are saying, yes, I need to hire a project manager, then look, at the end of this show, in my bio, we're going to have a link posted for you guys. You can join Protege. You can get our list on how to vet project managers, how to vet contractors, and even how to do it yourself. I always say, though, don't do your first one by yourself because you'll get a haircut. Because what you don't know is what you don't know. So that'll be your most costly lesson. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you for joining me for another great episode of the Property Challenge podcast. I absolutely love sharing these nuggets with you guys. If you love the nuggets that I'm sharing, do me a favor, take a moment, click the subscribe button and share it with 3 friends. Share this podcast. We're going to be talking about the property challenges that people have in projects that hold them back and make them fold. We're going to become unfolding this season and we're going to become the best that we possibly can. And sometimes the best may mean I just got to move out the way and bring somebody else that's better than me, or I may just need to make better decisions. But either way, you're going to make a decision. Thank you guys. I'm your host, Terrica Lynn Smith. I'll see you guys next week. Let's go.